we put all of our worth into something else and we forget who we are, and we get so wrapped up in what we do and how we do it.
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
This is Brett Eaton, and you're checking out the Council of Dudes podcast.
And here we go.
I don't have a formal thing. I just go. Like it's just there's no need for it. So you were talking about, well, first off, thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you.
We met, I don't know, 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
I think it was 2 at this point.
Yeah.
If not 3, yeah.
It might have been 2 at Greg's midlife male event, right? Yeah. And there were a little couple breakouts, and you and I kind of broke off, and we were talking, and I was like, I like this guy. I like the cut of this guy's jib. We just kind of hit it off pretty square away, and we've kind of just touched base throughout, and this has been almost 2 years in the making at this point. And what a perfect timing with your new book coming out, and amazing stuff. What a perfect title for something for you to speak on. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming and doing this, and it's been a long time in the making.
It has. First of all, thank you. Thank you for coming to our event, first of all.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember that same thing. I was like, yeah, this is one of my guys.
I
like this guy. And I love what you're doing here. I've watched a lot of the stuff. I like the people who are coming through, and being in New York is like, hey, let's make this work. I know it's been a while, so thank you for your patience. But,
of course.
Perfect timing.
What I've learned is that these things happen when they're supposed to happen. You know, I will throw it out to people, and people are like, hey, I want to come up. I'm like, all right, cool. I have people that I've, like you, who I've been talking to about doing a podcast with for 2 years. And the more I try, we got to make this happen and work and wedge it in and squeeze it, it's like that's when it doesn't work. But when you just let it just happen when it's supposed to happen and just have that energy towards it, it ends up working itself out way better than I ever anticipate.
Well, we just got some time to hang out, running for SD cards, right? So
a couple SD card trips.
Yeah.
So you just got back from retreat.
Yes.
And we were talking about it a little bit before, but I think there was something really amazing that we were unpacking. Like, all right, let's just save it for the podcast. And you know, I've heard you speak on podcasts before of this version of you that, you know, it's the Bruce Wayne and the Batman, right? The Clark Kent and the Superman, the Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, like these two versions of the same person. That one is this energetic expression of the best version of yourself, and then there's this version of yourself that kind of stays back in the shadows of yourself. And you were talking about how you now are just kind of starting to feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that you kind of are able to shed that former self and really embody the version of you that you've kind of always seen yourself being.
Yeah, back when Instagram first, I act like it first started. I was a late adopter to the game, but my handle was Motivated by Brett, and it was almost this alter ego of what I aspired to be. At the time, I wasn't very motivated. I wasn't this, you know. I was in the gym, and I could rah-rah, I could get people going, and that's always been a little bit of a power of mine. But I wanted to be this guy who could motivate people to do almost anything. I just aspired to be that. But it oftentimes on Instagram, because I didn't know how it worked and what I was doing, but it was like, if I'm on Instagram, I'm this guy, but if you meet me behind the scenes, I'm this guy. And guess what? Not surprising, it was harder to show up. It was harder to post. It was harder to figure out who was what. When I'm on Instagram, I'm this motivated guy who, you know, is trying to look like he has it all together, but I'm blacking out on a Friday night and doing all these things, like, you know, like all of the stuff on that was fun, but like wasn't this persona that I was trying to match up. And, you know, I was just saying, you know, coming off of a pretty life-altering week last week of just being honestly proud of myself, of how I'm living, how I'm showing up, the impact that I'm making, proud of a 2-year project of the book, that I did have this moment kind of, you know, flying home of, it's felt like I've been chasing this version of myself for so long, and knowing that there's potential, knowing that, I know who's inside, and I know the impact that I can have, and I'm starting to feel that I'm very aligned with this, quote unquote future version of myself. And I don't want that to come off like I'm done. I've won the game. I've figured it out. No, of course not. Of course not. We're always evolving. There's always growth. There's going to be a new uncomfortable either way in my life. Right. Stepping into a new role as a father, as we talked about coming up at the end of this year, the whole game is going to change.
Everything. Everything. Just when you thought you figured it out, here it comes again.
It's the best part of life. But what I don't feel like I need to do anymore is I don't feel like there's a Clark Kent and a Superman. I don't feel like I need to be Superman. I'm fine with Clark Kent. Now, that doesn't mean when I'm standing in front of a room full of people that I don't try to crank up the energy. Sure. But I think you'd appreciate this. I was watching a documentary on wrestlers, and they were talking about the Stone Cold Steve Austins and the John Cenas and the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons, the wrestlers that people know even if you've never turned on WWE before.
Cultural icons.
Yeah, the Hulk, the Hulkster. What made them so good was that they weren't really anything other than themselves. They call it with the volume turned all the way up. So The Rock is actually kind of that guy, and like you follow him now, and he's still kind of funny. He's still kind of sarcastic. He still kind of talks trash like to Instagram and stuff. Yeah. But he was just cranked all the way up when he was The Rock. Stone Cold Steve Austin is still this country boy who's like
Broken Skull Ranch beer and the whole bit.
Slamming Coors Lights together or whatever, and hauling hay bales and stuff. So that's what I started to realize was no, that's still me. I don't have to change who I am, but if there's times when the volume's cranked up, and there's times when I'm naturally introverted. So there's times when also it's like cranked way down, and I just take it all in.
It's funny because I was talking to my daughter last night about it, talking about parenting and all that stuff, and she does acting, and the phrase fake it till you make it obviously comes up, right? Or act as if, which is a little bit, to me, I think it resonates a little bit more. But there is something to what you're saying in the sense that you already are that version of yourself, but we mute it because of culture, society, our own traumas and experiences that we downplay ourselves in some way, shape, or form, right? And versus just realizing that you already have that in you. Now it's just about like amplifying that version of you and embodying that version of you and allowing you. It's really about giving yourself that permission. And the part of it that I find so interesting is that this clarity that you received wasn't from the book, wasn't from a successful, seminar that you facilitated. It's going to a retreat of young men, correct, who lost their fathers.
Who lost a parent. Or somebody important in their life.
Got it.
And honestly, retreat makes it sound like fancy. It was a summer camp. It was a summer camp. It's 25% grief counseling and grief work, and 75% try to let these kids be kids again. And it is, we're sleeping in bunks, and I got paired with 7th graders. So I had 6, 11 to 12-year-old boys who, what was funny enough is not only the other co-counselor that I was with, but all of the boys, all of us, all had lost a father. Wow. Some of them to heart attacks, some of them to suicide, some of them to, some other tragic events. And a lot of those boys, it was within a year or two, so very, very recent. And what was interesting about how I even got there was a year ago, I remember feeling like there was something missing in the overall sphere of how I was spending my time. I had lost, when I was living in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago, I had a thing that I volunteered at every month. And there's a ton of ways to volunteer, and I'm not going to be like, oh, you need to do, you don't. But I have always found that you can donate, that's always helpful, but I've always found that donating my time is the best ROI for both sides. I feel like I'm making the biggest difference, and it also is a great perspective shift, and it resets me on what's important in life. And I remember this, Googling actually, trying to find something that aligned, what is an organization that really feels like home to me, feels like it's important to me. And I remember finding this experience camp thing, and when I was reading about it, I was like, this is incredible. I didn't know this existed. And this would have been perfect for me when I was 16 and lost my dad to a heart attack. And I would have been the quintessential, Mom, I'm not going to that. You're not going to make me go to that. And there's a lot of kids there who don't want to be there. They're mom or dad have maybe sent them, and they're a little upset. But what's so cool is this one boy, first day, like, hey, we're going to unpack our bags and put it under. I don't want to. Hey, we're going to do, no, I'm not going. And by the end of the day, a couple of days later, we're hugging, we're giving high fives, we're playing basketball. Just like they realize, like, wow, I don't have to be so closed off anymore. And it's not going to last for the rest of their life. But for 1 week, we get to sit with them in the anger, in the pain, in the tears. They get to talk about it for maybe the first time ever in a safe place with a bunch of people who understand and don't look at them like they're weird. That was always the hardest part for me, is somebody would not know what questions to ask. Do you want to talk about your dad? Do you not want to talk about your dad? And what was so powerful about that camp was that I almost didn't go. I had convinced myself, hold on, man, you're like full-blown book launch right now. You got a kid coming in December. Like, this is not the time to be spending a week at summer camp. Like, what are we doing here? And everything in my head was telling me this was not the logical decision. But my gut and my heart were telling me, you need to go to that. You've talked about it for enough. There's never going to be a perfect time. Go. And coming back after a week of just like full immersion, no phone, like there was no service other than like finding a phone to call my wife at the end of the night. There was no connection to the outside world. Didn't check an email, didn't check a text, didn't answer a phone. Probably for the first time since I had a phone. I've had days, I've had maybe some weekends. I've never gone 7 days without my phone. And coming back, the first thing I did is I sat with my wife and I was like, I can't believe I almost didn't go to that. Like, there was nothing that I could have done in that 7 days that would have been more impactful than go to that camp and spend time with those kids.
So often we have to heal like that version of ourselves, right? Like, we need, like, whether it be community work or whatever it is, like, the problem that you're trying to solve is really yourself, right? You're really trying to figure out your own enigma and figure out your own puzzle of your brain and give yourself the parent or the other person that you need in your life that you didn't have. And for you to step into that role, especially like you said, like, oh, it's not a good time. There's never a good time. You're absolutely right. Like, waiting to after you had the kid would have been utterly impossible, right? Yeah. Right? Like, this was the perfect time. And it's amazing. It kind of goes back to what you're saying, like, allowing that energy to, like, you're going to navigate those thoughts. You're going to be in your head. This is not right. And blah, 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 and leaving my wife. But then, like, when you really break it down, it is right. But, like, there's all this dialogue in your head. What was the root cause of that dialogue? Was it fear? Was it just anxiety, revisiting old things for yourself that maybe you thought you moved past?
It was one, I knew that I would have to probably share stuff at a certain time, right? And it's like, yeah, I've gotten to a place in the first chapter of the book. One of the decisions I had to make was, am I going to pour that story out? And, like, yeah, I think it's important to understand. You're not going to understand the guy today in this book if you don't know that part of the story. So sure. That's like introduction. Here's the first thing that happened. 16 years old. Let me take you right there so you get where I'm coming from. So knowing that, I also felt like this actually maybe is the best thing I could do for this. Like, maybe this is actually how I get really comfortable talking about this all. Maybe, like, the whole world's going to see it very soon. This is what I need to be doing. And also, I keep going back to, if I really say that, like, the most important thing to me is making an impact, talk yourself out of that one, Brett. Like, talk about impact for kids that have lost a parent. And I'm not saying this because, like, man, I'm so great and I'm like, I volunteer and you, like, people. No, I'm not, like, trust me, I haven't done a lot of that kind of work in a long time, which is why I found this. But I just went back to the grassroots of why I do what I do. And, like, why did I want to become a speaker? Because I want to impact people. And if I can impact kids, even better. But most importantly is, I wish when I went back to 16, I wish I would have had a camp like that. And that camp doesn't exist if there's not counselors there to hold space. Yeah. So it made sense to me. And when I finally got, like, excited about it and realized what we were doing, and the camp exceeded my expectations like tenfold. They are so dialed in. It's called experience camps for anybody who may be resonating with this or just looking for a place. Not all the counselors have lost parents. Some people just really resonate with the mission and really understand what it is. And they're always looking for volunteers. There's camps all over. The one I went to was in Georgia. But yeah, man, I mean, I shed tears. I gave 2-minute hugs. It was, and we also laughed, man. We played so much with these boys. And weirdly enough, I think at this specific phase of my life, it was really cool knowing that we're having a boy, to be able to look 11 years into the future and see what's possible and see like what these kids, you know, how much fun they could have and how much fun we're going to have and all of that. And also it really, not in a negative way, but in a appreciation way, told me the pressure and responsibility I have of stepping into this next phase of fatherhood. I'm so excited about it. And I'm going to make 100 million mistakes. Like there's, you know, we were talking, there's like, you can plan and plan and plan, and then all of a sudden you're just going to figure it out.
Yeah, I say all the time that no matter what, you're going to fuck up your kids. Like, no matter what.
Yeah, just
no matter how great you are, you're going to fuck up your kids.
Pick your poison.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think it just allowed me to get like really excited about that. But also, you know, both of us, we talk about fitness a lot. We talk about the importance of health. I think it made me realize that is a responsibility I have. And lucky enough, I understood that at a decently young age, and I have been. The thing I'm probably most proud of in my life is that over the last 8 years, I've made a decent amount of decisions for the wife and kids that I didn't have at the time. Like starting my own business was to free up time. I knew I wasn't going to be in the gym at 6 a.m., leaving at 8 p.m. and like being a personal trainer wasn't going to give me the financial means that I wanted. And also like that schedule wouldn't allow me to be a great husband or a great father. So making some of those decisions, trying the business, taking the risks that I took up front. Let me do this while it's just me and try to figure it out so that when this opportunity came, I was a little bit more ahead of the game. And that's probably like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know why that happened, but I'm really proud of some of the decisions I made beforehand.
Yeah, being proud of yourself is fucking huge, man, especially for men. I mean, it's huge for everybody. You know, again, being a father, I see how important it is to say those words to my kids. I see when my daughter does something that she's proud of, my son does something he's proud of, and they just, hey, look, hi, Dad. And you're like, I'm so proud of you. It's like, it is such a powerful word. And I think as men, we often kind of dismiss it because I think that we get caught up in like just the grunt work, right? Like today for Agora, we hit over 10K in our investment, and my partners are like, "Dude, it's awesome!" Like, yeah, awesome. Next,
what's next?
Right? Like, what's next? What's next? And that's, I mean, I've spoken about it a lot lately, and that's something that, like, kind of going back to that delta space where it's like, I'm not the version I see myself being ultimately, but I'm certainly not the version I once was. And you're living in this limbo state. It becomes very hard for me personally to navigate that aspirational but still grateful, right? And I think being grounded in gratitude, but also being proud of what you've done, but it's only through hindsight that you could really look back and go, I'm really proud of myself.
If you build, he will come.
The point is, don't lose your dinosaur.
Yeah, I think you need white space. The white space is the only time that you actually give yourself a chance to be proud. And I don't think it takes going to summer camp. You don't have to go to summer camp and disconnect for a week. But I do think there's always the next thing. There's always the next, you celebrate a birthday, you're on to the next thing. Right. Or you open a bit, you're on to the next thing. You write a book. Well, now you got to go sell the book. Now you got to go launch the book. Now you got to go talk about the book. Like, when do you celebrate the fact that, man, you did something? And I remember it was like when the book showed up, I like carried the book around for like an hour. I was like, it smells like a new book, and the pages flip, and the cover's hard, like it's all the things. But it's the white space that allows us to have those moments. And I've lived plenty of years of my life on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And just recently, I think I've started to pull back a little bit and look at it from the greater scheme of things, you know. And I think being married has completely changed me as a man. And I think there's just more times where it's easier to tell my wife that I'm proud of her and how much I love her and I'm really grateful for you to do this than it is to look in the mirror and say that, right? But there's been some of this where it's nice to also have like a partner in crime to say like, hon, you know what? I'm like really proud of myself. And I got home and I'm like, I'm really proud of myself for going to that. Cause that like, it wasn't easy. It was hard. Like I told you about the sleeping arrangements. It was like sleeping on a rock, you know, with a paper towel. But it was super fulfilling. And I think that fulfillment piece is honestly what I love to really talk about with people. And I think that the high performance coaching that I've done in my career has taken me down a path that I didn't expect to go when I got into high performance. And I think a lot of people have wanted to work with me or are attracted to high performance because they have some big mountain that they want to climb. And I didn't realize this at the time, but I went through a moment of wondering if I was a bad high performance coach, because people were coming to me and they say like, Brett, I want to reach this goal, or I want to reach this much money, or I want to achieve the next thing. And I'd be like, okay, we're great. Okay, good, lock in, let's go get it. And we would get it. And a week would go by and I'd kind of be like, hold on a second. Like, did we even celebrate that? What happened? And I had one client who hit their big financial goal, and it was something we had worked like a year and a half to get. And he hit it on Friday, and on Monday he had a busier schedule, more stress. He had more work to do, and he was not going to get home for dinner that night. And I just looked, and I kind of paused, and I questioned, and I was like, is this what you thought it would be? And me and him together, his name is Sean, really great dude. We've become, really good friends because of it. But it was at that moment I was like, did I fail you? Like, did I fail you as a coach? We got this thing, and it really didn't add any fulfillment to our life. And it was at that moment I started to realize that I think a lot of people have high performance wrong, and I'm determined to kind of figure it out. And I think I'm either going to become the greatest high performance coach in the world, or I'm going to be the worst. But I'm willing to go down this lane to find out, because I think what's missing is we're chasing more, better, everything, like more money, more this, more that, the next house, the next thing, and we're missing the idea of fulfillment. And a lot of it is I think we're chasing things that we don't know why. Why are we chasing it? Somebody told you it's going to be better. You think it's going to be better. You're missing the things now. And what's happening is we always think fulfillment is going to be this destination, when fulfillment is really a daily practice. And it needs to be a muscle that we flex all the time. And to go back to what you just said, pausing for a quick second and naming a couple things that you're proud of is a great way to add some fulfillment to your life. What are we proud of now? Not what you're going after, not what you're going to be proud when, but can I be proud right now before my son is born? Like spending some time being appreciative and looking back in the rearview mirror and saying, I made this decision, I made this decision, I made this decision before he was even conceived. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. It's a good barometer to going through your phone and looking back at pictures, because you forget that version of you that we're striving to be this version of you, right? Like so easily, or you'll get like those memories on your phone, and you're like, holy shit! Like this year, this month is my 8th year of doing jiu-jitsu, right? And it's been such a huge part of my life. My kids do it here and there, but they do it. It is part of my DNA at this point.
Yeah.
It's a part of who I am. It's that Batman version of myself, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a reminder. I was like, 8 years ago, you started jiu-jitsu. I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't remember my life not doing jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't that long ago. It's only 8 years, but it seems like, and there is something about taking that moment and being like, I'm pretty fucking proud of myself. I've won 2 tournaments. I'm purple belt. Like, I'm in it. Like, there's no turning back on this now. Like, I'm black belt. Like, that's it. Like, we're going there. But it is only in that moment where you get these glimpses into the past that you're able to see and go, oh shit, I am proud of myself for the shit I've done, and we get caught up in that next, because there is validation in the next, right? There is this cultural confirmation of validation that you are doing the things that you are setting out to do. You're hitting those goals, right? And you're absolutely right. The high performance world, especially in, when you get immersed in it, you could feel such a level of lack because you're not at that level, because you don't look like this, because you don't have that car, this bank account, and it's very hard to navigate that.
I don't think anything has. And I was doing a men's event in Washington D.C. and I started. It was a room full of like 30 guys, all decently high performing, and I started with, guys, nothing has changed my life for the better more than high performance. Nothing has helped me optimize, helped me prioritize, helped me raise my game, helped me achieve more than high performance. And at times, nothing has made me feel like I'm not doing enough and I'm never going to be enough like high performance. And I think setting the stage with that, everybody was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, that's what
Yeah, there's nothing that makes me more miserable than my own, self-talk ecosystem vacuum of trying to optimize and maximize my life experience. Nothing makes me more miserable.
Nothing, because it takes...
It's true.
I'm staring at the sign right here. Comparison is
one of my favorites. That's why it's right there. Yeah.
Right? Theodore Roosevelt.
Yep.
It's right on the wall here. And that is what high performance can sometimes feel like. It's like, oh, I did a minute in the cold plunge. This guy did 6. Like, step your game up. It's like, oh, do you know how long it takes some people to just get in and get... So, cold plunge in general, there's so many different... Cold plunge is level 15 when it comes to things you should be doing for your health, right?
Right.
That's where I was conflicted for a while there of figuring out. And what's funny is stuff like, thankful for that guy Sean is like, no, like Brett, you didn't fail me. You have been so eye opening and you've asked all the right questions and you've done so many helpful things for me to get through that. And I kind of put out the question there, and I still don't know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway because I feel like it's my new puzzle that I need to solve. Is how many times have we heard somebody who has made all the money say, guys, trust me, money's not going to make you happy. And how many times have we seen somebody climb the mountain and build the business and grow the family and do all the things and tell somebody who's not there, don't put all your happiness in this because when you get, it's not going to give you everything that you're looking for. You got to find that now. And I remember sitting in the stands, watching the people on stage say it's not about money and me thinking, bullshit, I still want more money.
Easy for you to say you have the money.
For you to say, I'd rather have the money and then figure that out.
Of course.
So that's kind of the biggest question that I've been asking myself right now is, do I have to climb the mountain? Do I have to get to the top to look around, whatever mountain, metaphorical mountain we're talking about. But do we have to get to the top of our own mountain, our own challenge, just to find that answer for ourselves? Is it one of those journeys that we have to take to realize, wow, the top of the mountain, you look left, you look right, you plant your little flag, you're up there for a minute or two, and then what do? You might have hiked for, 10 hours. I don't know how long Everest takes, but like you're up there very quickly and you're like, we got to get back down before sunset. Right. So the top of the mountain is so small. It's such a small percentage of the journey that it's so cliche. And sometimes I want to gag when I say it, but it's like, you got to appreciate the journey. But my question is, do you only find the answer to that, to like your own journey, like when you've gotten to the top and then you look back and then you look back and you say, he was right. It wasn't all about the money. He's right. It wasn't about the next accomplishment. It was actually the journey that was the most fun part and it was the most rewarding and fulfilling part.
I think it's an internalization process. I think it is this idea that you could listen to all those speeches. You hear the Jim Carrey speech at that so famously said, right, and about his dad, and it kind of goes to what your book is, like uncomfortable either way. Like either way, it's gonna be one or the other. Like pick your poison. But it's an intrinsic thing. I always kind of use this bubble test analogy. It's like you would be. The answer and you could fill it out in the bubble and you'll get it right, but do you actually know the answer? Like there's a difference there when it's a part of you, who you are and your experience, and you could pull from it in a different way than just saying like, yeah, I know my happiness is not in my bank account or in the car I drive or the watch I have. It's in my kids, but I'm still going after it. Because, again, it's that external validation that we're all seemingly seek in some way, shape, or form. And, of course, you want to, like to your point, like, it's better to have the money than fucking not. Like, period. Like, that's just the reality. It's better to have the thing than not have the thing. It's, I think, how you identify with the thing and how much praise you give that thing. Right? Yeah. That because if that becomes your God, then everything else is going to be bleak.
Yeah, some people have to test it out, and I do think there is a testing it out. When I met my wife, she had just within a year of meeting my wife and us dating, she sold her company, and you know it was a huge celebration, and it was amazing. She had worked 10 years for that, and I remember it was really uncomfortable for me at first to all of a sudden step into, you know, I always knew that I would be successful. I always knew that we would, you know, I'd be able to live in a great house and do all these things. It just came a little sooner than I thought. And I remember it was a little challenging for me at first to step into that lifestyle because it was almost like I didn't feel like I had earned it. She had earned it. But then I also realized this is the woman of my dreams. And if I don't like figure this out, like I may self-sabotage one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Right. But we were going through these challenges separately. For her, she was starting to raise her, like, what is expensive, right? Like, do I buy this thing? Do I not buy this thing? I've never really wanted, but we almost had to test it out.
And just to set the framework real quick, your wife Ann sold Solid Core for $100 million?
It was
just shy? Right around there, right.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was just some, you know, fly-by-night number or fly-by-night thing. It was time, effort, energy. She's a very strong woman. Like, I've met her. We met her at the Solid Core event that we did. Yeah. And she has a presence about her that some men might be intimidated by, right? That exchange of energy can be very, very jarring. I mean, like, working with a couple guys that I do, you know, one's a stay-at-home dad, right? So that conversation around the hockey rink is like, oh, what do you do? I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a stay-at-home dad, right?
Totally.
I had a college professor that one time said, like, no man would ever want to be a stay-at-home dad. And I was like, fuck that, I would. And he's like, no, your ego would get in the way and you wouldn't want that. And, you know, your wife would start to look at you differently. And I'm like, nope, I'd be totally good taking the kids and doing I'm comfortable with that. And I think that that shift, you know, and again, there are some DNA, you know, evolutionary things that come to, like, a man going out in the field and working and the woman picking the berries, right? But I also think that there is something about being so self-aware, right, and realizing the dynamics of the relationship and then honoring those as well. Yeah,
and this, I think it's important to share, like, how that evolution happened, because there was a time, we got married last February, and there was a time around last October that I was starting to realize, like, my scoreboard was changing. And it was changing in not a great way, meaning I was putting all of my self-worth into work. And I've never really been that kind of a guy. But we were starting to meet new people. People were coming over, and we were hosting, you know, events and stuff. And I was finding, and this was one of those things where, like, nobody's thinking about you the way you're thinking about you. But I was convincing myself that, like, oh, well, if you're married to, you must be even more successful, right? And then it was this, no, I'm not. Like, you know, we're in this house because of her, or we're in this. And what's funny was, man, when I was living in, like, the 1-bedroom apartment in San Diego with my surfboard on the wall, I was the happiest person in the world. I was like, I'm crushing it. I have time freedom. I live by the beach. But then all of a sudden I meet this woman of my dreams. She's amazing. And last October, I remember having this moment where I started feeling like it was all about success for me. And if I wasn't booking more speaking events, then I wasn't successful. And if I wasn't, you know, signing clients, I wasn't successful. And the book, I would write it and I'd finish it and I'd send it to them, and then they'd send it back with 400 red lines. And I was like, oh, this is never going to get done. I have nothing to show for it. And I remember struggling with gratitude for a while. I remember finding, like, I wasn't angry, but I was struggling to be appreciative of all the things that we had. And all of this came kind of to a fruition because I had, you know, I knew that I wasn't going to be the primary breadwinner in our family.
At that point.
At that point.
Like, it's a very big mountain to climb at that point.
Like, so far and away. And again, this is coming from feeling successful, but all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not successful, because all of a sudden my barometer had changed.
Sure.
And I remember having this conversation while, you know, and I grew up in a family where, you know, both parents worked, you know, but dad was the primary breadwinner. Again, never made more than $100 grand, but it was just like, it's just kind of the dynamic worked that way. And so I'm coming to grips with this. I'm not going to be the main provider. Now, you know, now I realize there's so many other ways to provide, but I'm not going to be the provider. But I started to say like, okay, well then I can protect, right? So every night I lock down the house and I make sure that the house is safe, and I do all this stuff. And I, you know, when we go somewhere, I drive, and it's all these things. And the one possession that my wife bought when she sold her company, she's very good with money. She's smart. She makes a lot of good investments. She doesn't do a lot of things that are just like blatant cost. Right. But she bought herself a baby blue Bentley. And that was like her reward for 10 years of hard work in selling her company. And I remember her whole family was there for Thanksgiving, and we are leaving the beach from a volleyball tournament that she won, and we're celebrating, and we pull up, and the nieces and nephews come running out, and they're like, we're ordering pizza, and it's amazing. And you know, we get out of the car, and like we're giving them hugs and everything, and they're celebrating, and we walk inside, and I had driven, and I left the keys in the cup holder. And we walk inside, we don't shut the garage. Always do all of those things. And I remember at the end of the night shutting down the house, and I walk out to the garage and the car's gone. And I run upstairs and I say, honey, please tell me, like, did one of the nephews take it? Like, are they driving? Like, where is it? And she goes, are you kidding me? And I whip out the phone and I look at the camera and I see us pull into the driveway. 2 minutes later, a car drives by, it drives by again. Two guys jump over the gate with like hooded sweatshirts, and they back the car out and they take off. And losing that car broke me, because it wasn't just that it was her possession, and it wasn't just that it was her reward. It was that it was in front of her entire family. And in the morning, I have to have this conversation about, like, now the nephews and nieces are like, are we safe here? Are we this? And I hit a low that I haven't hit in a very long time, because I'm like, I know that I'm not going to be the provider. But now I'm failing at protecting as well. And I struggle for like a month. I like really struggle with just gratitude and just appreciation and like all the things. And like, I know they're there, but it's just, I was in this bubble of self-consume. And I remember going outside and I look up to the sky and I see a rainbow in the sky. And my mom and I have this thing that when we see a rainbow, it's kind of a sign from dad, like, you know, I'm here, I'm looking over, like everything's going to be okay. And I thought it was really weird because it hadn't rained that day. I was like, that's strange. But I was like, I'm gonna take this as a sign. There's a sign, and I look up and I say, Dad, send me something, please. Like, I'm looking for a sign. I know this isn't me. I know I'm more than this. Like, but send me something, because I'm looking. And I remember going into my office, and I went into my office and I was like, let me straighten out my office to distract myself. And there was a stack of books just like this, because I'm going through all of the book decisions and the cover and the fonts and all that stuff. And I'm starting to put these books away. And at the bottom, there's this book called The Richest Man in Town. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's like 87 pages, super thin. It's and it's about this guy, Marty. And I just say, like, richest man in town. I think I'm going to read this. Like, I don't know why, but something says,
I love when that happens.
I need to read this. Yeah. I don't know where it came from. I didn't buy it, and I don't know why it's on my desk, because
legit, you didn't know where it came from?
I don't know where it came from. It has nothing. It looks nothing like my book, so there'd be no reason it would be in this pile, and I don't know where it came from. So I stop what I'm doing, I sit and I read this, and it's about this guy, Marty. And the author writes it about this guy, Marty. He's 80 years old. He works at Walmart in South Dakota, and he's standing in this guy, Marty, who's a cash register, and he's like all bent out of shape. He's like, this guy's taking forever. What's going on? And he finally gets up there, and this guy, Marty, asks him what his name is, asks about his day, like genuinely has a conversation with him, goes around the corner, hands the change in one hand, shakes his hand and says, I hope you have a really great day. And the author of this book walks away and he's like, his whole day was changed because this guy just took time to talk to him, and like all of his frustration leading up is like completely gone, and his day is great. Next day he goes back, gets in his line again, gets the same treatment, and realizes like Marty has this relationship with all of these people. And the book is real quick, but it talks about like Marty's 3 rules of life. And Marty's 3 rules of life are: relationships matter most, do a little bit more, and only you can make you happy. And I read this book and I'm like, that's exactly what I needed. And it can be this simple. This guy lives in a double wide trailer, and he's working at Walmart, and he's just like having this amazing impact on people. And so I read the book, don't say anything to my wife. Next morning I get home from the gym. She's like, babe, there's a letter. Read it. It's from our nephew John. And I'm like, okay. I open up the letter, and it's a letter from my nephew John, and it says, "Dear Uncle Brett and Auntie Annie," who's what they call her, and they say, "We just read this book in studies class called The Richest Man in Town." And it immediately made me think of you guys because of how you treat people and all these things. And he goes, and he writes in there, even when the Bentley got stolen, you still kept a great attitude and you still made us have a really good trip. And I appreciate all you do for me. And I say, "Babe, this is incredible." She goes, "I know, it's a really nice letter." And I said, "No, hon, you don't understand. I read that book last night and I don't know where it came from." And I'm just sitting with it and I'm like, okay, so that's a sign. And I'm like, richest man in town. And something about that is just, it's like, it's incomplete. It's like, where did that come from? And then I remember, and I sprint up to my office, I open the safe that I have, and I pull out probably the most important speech I've ever given in my life, the eulogy of my dad's funeral. And in there, halfway into the second page, I wrote a poem because I couldn't put words together, and everybody was like, "Brett, you got to say something." And I was like, well, if I rhyme words, maybe I'll be able to fit it. And in there I say, "Not being incredibly wealthy never got you down, because until yesterday, I never realized you were the richest man in town." And I wrote that because 2 days before that, we were at the wake. And if you've ever been at a wake, or the people at the front are the ones who lost somebody, and there's a big line and you're shaking everybody's hand. And as a 16-year-old kid, I want to get the hell out of there. Like 7 to 9, please tell me when it's 9 o'clock so we can leave. And at 9 o'clock, the woman who owns the funeral home comes up and she says, "Guys, I know it's 9 o'clock, but there's a line around the building. We've never seen this place like this before." And as like annoyed and upset as I was, I just thought to myself, why is there a line around the building? Like who was my dad? Like I don't understand this. Like my dad, again, never made more than 6 figures, didn't do anything crazy important, coached Little League baseball. Like why is there a line around the building? It just makes no sense. And the only good part about losing somebody young is that standing in that line, I got to hear everybody's best story about my dad. And I called him the richest man in town because everybody had such great things to say about him. And he had all these friends and he had all these things. And like nobody was talking about what he did for work. Nobody was talking about how many stores he opened. Nobody was talking about how many things he sold. They were talking about like who he was and how he made them feel. And that he called this random person on their birthday every day. And that he, helped someone so-and-so like at home when they needed to move. Like that was who he was. And I called him the richest man in town because it just it take me back to one of my favorite movies, the Christmas movie. Why can't I think of it now?
Christmas Vacation?
No, not that one. The Jimmy Stewart one. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And at the end they say like, no man is a failure who has friends. And now all of a sudden I'm connecting the dots. The richest man in town, and I'm like, this is wild. And all of a sudden, it like clicked for me, and I realized it's not going to be about work. It's like it's always about how you make people feel. And my favorite quote of all time is, "People are going to forget what you said, they're going to forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." It's a Maya Angelou quote, and it just completely shifted. And it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm healed, I'm fixed, I'm everything." No, there's still work to be done, but I remember that connection of things. I was like, okay, I see the sign, like I get it. It just put things in perspective for me of I am the right person to marry my wife. I'm the best person to do this. I just had to do a little bit more work on myself to get to a point where my worth isn't put into being the primary breadwinner. I still bring a lot to the table. And the reason why my wife and I work so well is on our very first date, I laid out everything. I was like, "You want to know my flaws? Here's my flaws. You want to know how much money I make? This is what I make. You want to know, like because I was coming out of an old relationship, and I was like, I'm not going to dance around, and I'm not going to act like I'm somebody that I'm not. This is who I am. Take it or leave it." And we just like hit it off immediately. And like she never wanted me because of my money. She never wanted me because I was anything other than me. And it just I got so lost on that way. And the reason I tell that story is because it can happen to us men a lot. That we put all of our worth into something else and we forget who we are, and we get so wrapped up in what we do and how we do it. And for me, that was when all of a sudden I started making less decisions about money, which always leads you to making stupid decisions. But I started making less decisions about money and more decisions about making impact. And all of a sudden I'm speaking for free and speaking at some of these events and everything is coming together. And guess what? Ended up making more money, right? And it's never going to be about that for me. It's just about the impact. But I got lost. And I think it happens.
Yeah, and you have to allow that energy. First off, that story is, I got chills through it, like multiple times at that story. I just kept getting chills, and then they go away, and I was like, oh, here come more. You can't even put words to that, right? Like, you can't even put words to it, and like just that alignment, right? That alignment, that awareness, all of that coming together is just what really is like. That's a miracle in my mind, right? That they have the coincidences when you're kind of still in the grunt of it. Then you start calling them serendipities. I'm at the stage where I call them micro miracles, and that is a full on. I mean, what more could you ask for, right? Like, what more at that point could you ask for? But it's so easy to get caught up in what we do, to your point, as men, and how you show up in the world. And it's about how you make people feel when they walk away, and you'll, not to say it, but you'll learn that even more so when you become a dad. Like, when you become a dad, you realize, I had this experience, this realization really of the relationship that I have with God, right? And that's just kind of a phase that I'm going through, a journey that I'm going through currently, because I grew up Catholic, and God was always just like guy in the sky with a beard. I was like, you're doing all this shit wrong. And it wasn't until I shifted that relationship to like a father-son relationship, and I looked at my children, and I said to myself that if I could look at myself the way they look at me, and I could love myself the way I love them, unconditionally, then I have a slight drop of what that relationship is with God. And that shifted everything for me. Like, that really shifted so much, because I was like, oh, like there was this sense of relief with that. There was a sense of like, I could let my shoulders down a little bit and realize that like I don't have to be this perfect dad or this perfect husband or this perfect man. I could just be who I am, and it's not about what I do, but it's really how I just show up for myself, and therefore the relationship I have.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's beautifully said, and I don't think everything happens in the right order. And I was telling you, that my wife and I have had a pretty we've had about a year of IVF and success, failure, and we not far after all of these things are happening, it's like all of a sudden we get some really good news, right? And it's kind of like, maybe I just needed to clear the energy, right? Like,
Exactly. You have to like create the space for the energy to like present itself, because if you have like these clogged portals and this message, or whatever you want to call it, this information, this data, this download, whatever it is trying to get through to you, you don't have the lens to see it. You're caught up in like this white knuckling, like fuck this shit, or whatever it is. Like, I'm not good at this, or I'm not doing this. I'm not.
Yeah.
And you're not giving yourself to be in the receiving state of I am.
Yeah. And I don't think I would. Last year, I would have said no to going to this summer camp, because it would have not been about the bottom line, right? It would have taken me away, would have distracted me, wouldn't have been about high performance, wouldn't have been about all these things. And to me, like, that's where we actually miss out on life. That's where we miss out on the fulfillment. That's where high performance just gets fucked, because we're missing out on what actually we're doing high performance for. What are we pursuing high performance for? So we can optimize, so we can prioritize, so that we can enjoy the things in life that matter. And where high performance has gotten so off track and confused for people is it's been completely flipped upside down, and it's actually become the biggest distractor for us. It's become we're less optimized because of a lot of it. And it's become this thing that now we're chasing and we're doing and we're trying to do this and this and this, that we're missing the things that are the most important for us. If I ask a room full of people, 90% of them will tell me that the most important things for them are their health, are their relationships, and probably like their career or their business, right? Or whatever it may be. Right. And okay, so if those are the three things, if we're not high performancing for those things, like our health and our life and our relationships, and being able to spend more time with the people that matter, what are we optimizing for? What are we actually chasing?
Yeah. It's funny, just yesterday morning, I know you're a big advocate of don't miss a Monday. I miss many Mondays. I'm just letting you know. I miss many Mondays.
You and Greg Scheinman.
I miss many Mondays, but yesterday I woke up to go to the gym, Monday, go to CrossFit, and as I'm kind of getting ready to get out the door or just leave my room and start, the coffee and the contacts and brush my teeth, my son calls me. And he doesn't really wake up at that time. Like, he's a sound sleeper. And he's like, Dad. And I'm like, it's weird. So I go and I'm like, what's up? He's like, slay with me. And I was like, you got it, man. Like, the gym could wait. Like, and in my mind, like, and that's that's a real dynamic in my mind, because I come from this version of myself that would beat the shit out of myself if I missed the 5 a.m. CrossFit class. I was a piece of shit. I'm lazy. My day's fucked. Now I'm going to go eat a bagel, right? Like, I am completely, my day is annihilated. And in that moment, I was like, oh, this is like, and I did a post about it. I was like, that day's going to come. And I'm never going to say, man, I wish I went to that fucking 5 a.m. CrossFit class. It's never going to come out of my mouth.
Never.
And the realization, having a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, is I get this wonderful perspective. And I often, jokingly say, like, oh, you always fuck up your kids. But I sometimes reflect and say, oh, man, did I do enough for my daughter? And I have 4 more years of this guy. Can I make up for where I missed the mark on her? And I don't think I missed the mark. She's an amazing child. And again, you're always going to fuck them up. But I do wrestle with that. And in that moment, I was like, fuck the gym. Like, fuck CrossFit right now. Fuck everything. This is what really matters more than anything. But it isn't until, unfortunately, sometimes we come up. I had a really wild experience a few months back that I really don't even think I can bring myself to talk about. We can talk about it afterwards. But essentially, it's hard to talk about. But it really put things back in perspective for me. And I think we can get caught up in some of the should've, could've, would've's and supposed to be doings, the supposed-tos, and it takes sometimes these radical experiences to just fucking snap you back into reality of what's truly important. Like, I have a gratitude journal. It's like a 5-minute gratitude journal. The first one's like, what are 3 things you're grateful for? And it's funny, I'm like, my family, my health, my relationship with God, or whatever it is. And I did a week of it. And at the end of the week, I was like, am I doing this right? Like, am I, like, I'm still, like, I'm only great, like, should I be, like, manifesting? I'm grateful for my business that's generating this amount of money so I can create the reality that I want and step into that version of me. And I'm like, no, like, that's a part of it. Like, yeah, it's cool to be grateful for the thing that you don't have, and so you can bring it to fruition and all that stuff. But, like, I'm grateful for these 3 little humans in my household, or 1 adult human, 2 little humans. And just, like, the fact that I could, put my Christmas tree in the attic every year and, like, pull it down, because it's like, there are people that can't do that.
Yeah.
And when you really reverse it to, and you're right, like, that optimization, the health and wellness space gets corroded and perverted by optimization and high performance, that we do lose fulfillment. But I also think that people don't know where to start to find fulfillment. Especially as men, our purpose is not this intrinsic purpose. Yes, it's to provide and protect, but we've lost that over time. And women do seemingly have the most important purpose, which is to keep the fucking species alive, right?
Yeah.
And we lose that. So I think a lot of guys and a lot of people outsource their fulfillment and purpose to rewards.
I think it starts with defining what success means. And I've only recently discovered this, and like the end of the book, weirdly enough, has kind of been the launching point for like a lot of the stuff that I'm speaking on now. And like, maybe it's another book, and like, who knows? But this whole like define your own success is really important, because I think a lot of us are chasing something that we saw from somebody else. Either our parents, either, the people in our neighborhood, the car that we want. And I'm not saying don't go get any of that. I'm just saying make sure that it is what you want. The worst thing in the world is to put the time, energy, effort, and sacrifice to go chase something down that you never really wanted. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in that. My belief is that if we start by defining our success, like, what does success mean in your health? What does success mean in a relationship? Like, what does that actually look like? And not just like, oh, we're happily married. What does that actually mean? And then we can reverse engineer well, what does it take to get at? Yep. And where high performance has gotten thrown off is it's high performance by term is structure. But I think a lot of people have turned the structure into rigidity. And what you just did of like, I'm going to skip this freaking workout to go lay with my boy is structure of like, well, my structure is to wake up and go do this thing. Rigidity would have been like, I got to get to the workout. And that's going to sacrifice a lot of things. What happens when you travel? And I used to be bad at like, when I travel, like, oh, everything goes to hell and I'm so off and I feel so out of sorts because I was so rigid. So finding the structure of what allows me to have a good day. And I also think the more options you have to having a good day. If your good day only looks like everything going right from top to bottom,
you're fucked.
You're fucked. You're not going to have a good day very often.
Yeah, dude.
But if you have 10, 12, 20, 30 different ways to have a good day, Like I can have a great day at home with my wife and my dog and never leave the house. And like,
Well, it's different versions of a great day.
it's different versions and different phases,
Yes.
different versions, different phases. And then, but all that comes back down to is you got to know what's important to you. And I really think like putting pen to paper, if you've never actually defined what success means and then asking why. And for a lot of people, and this is another thing I found through high performance coaching that I never thought I'd find. What do you want? Oh, I want to make, 10%, 15% more. Why? Well, it's what success is. Well, like why? And we'd break down, well, I want to go on vacation. You don't need more money for that, buddy. What you need is to be able to accept the fact that you just need to take more time off from work. You don't need more money for that. You think that more money is going to give you the feeling that allows you to go on more vacations. You have plenty of money to go on more vacations. You just don't have the courage to take the time off. You see, like that's what I love about this is the puzzle of it, of figuring out what makes people work. And what's funny is I'm so better at asking you questions.
Of course, no, I love it too. I love going down the rabbit hole. Yeah, of course.
But that's why I've just been so obsessed with it. And like, who knows what it's going to look like moving forward. But those are the questions that really get my wheels turning. And then obviously what I love about, working with people or even speaking in front of a room and doing consultative coaching is it reflects back to me as I drive away being like, when was the last time I wrote that down, right? And most of the stuff I talk about, I practice what I preach, but we always need the reminder.
Of course.
We always need the reminder. And like, hey, when was the, yes, of course I define success in those areas, but like, does it need an update? Now that we're having a baby, does that need an update? Do I need to understand like what my time looks like? What does my health look like? It being 38 now, health looks, my goals in health and some of the injuries, like that looks different. Success to me looks different than it did at 28 when I was like, I'm going to be the CrossFit champion. Probably not.
Right.
38 now, I'm like, I want to be able to, when my kid becomes 13, I want to be able to step on the court and beat him in basketball and volleyball.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I want to be able to do.
Yeah.
So it changes. It has to evolve.
But you weren't always this guy, right? Like you weren't always this version of yourself, as we kind of alluded to in the beginning. Like there was this differentiating version of you of the Clark Kent and the Superman, the Bruce Wayne, the Batman. You were a physical trainer. You were in that space. What was the turning point of that where you were like, I don't want to be doing this anymore? I mean, you mentioned a little bit of regards to like realizing like I'm going to be spending hours and time and effort and all this energy in the gym. But was there a line of demarcation where you're like, I need to pivot?
I realized that I was leaving a lot of potential on the table. And
how did you realize that?
The hardest thing in the world to change is good, right? Is like something that's good. And I had a good job. I was the regional director of fitness and blah, blah, blah. And,
blah, 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 blah.
Made okay money.
Right.
And had good friends and was having a fun life and all those things. But I just knew that like I was no longer being challenged and I was getting very complacent. And I was the quintessential, I have all these dreams. I'm going to start the business. I know I have the idea. I can sell this. I can do that. But I had every reason to, every excuse in the world. Oh, it's not the right time. Now it's not this. I got to do this. We got to open a new gym, whatever it may be. And that's honestly, like if I trace way back, that's where like the uncomfortable either way started. And I didn't call it that at the time, but I remember walking away from this job and starting a business is going to be hard. It's going to be really uncomfortable because I don't know how to do it. Nobody in my family has been an entrepreneur. And giving myself a pay cut is going to be uncomfortable, and changing some of my friend circle is going to be uncomfortable. Not going out as much is going to be uncomfortable. Driving to a conference that I had never been to by myself, very uncomfortable. But what I started to realize, everything changed when I had like the realization of, Brett, you're already uncomfortable now. You're already uncomfortable saying that you're going to do the thing and continuing to delay it. You're already uncomfortable going out on a Friday night feeling guilty about not doing the thing that you said you were going to do again, right? Or being hungover, wasting an entire weekend day where that's your biggest day to make a change. You're uncomfortable saying you're going to go to the next, personal growth thing or watch the video. Like all of that, I was like, dude, you're already uncomfortable. Like, don't fool yourself into thinking only change is uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden it became like this fork in the road. And now all of a sudden that uncomfortable didn't feel so bad anymore because it was like that one's going to come with growth. I'm going to fall flat on my face. I'm going to mess up a lot. But guess what? Like that actually feels like I'm in control of that. And this one just feels like my life is passing me by.
That's interesting that you feel like that is a form of control, because on the other side of that, the unfolding of the unknown is seemingly a lack of control, right? There is no control, but yet knowing that you're going to put in the work is where you're taking control of the situation versus not putting in the work and having seemingly control over it, right? So that's a really interesting perspective, because as you step into the unknown and the discomfort of that next phase of you, it's seemingly on the surface, it's like it's not controllable. It's a lot of X factors. You're stepping out into the unknown. But knowing that I'm going to show up now is you actually reframing that and now putting control in a seemingly non-controllable situation.
When you go to make a change in your life or you go to pursue something, you know the biggest thing that you do have control over is the regrets that you have at the end of your life. And when you step into that and you go to pursue those things, you are actually in control. You don't even have to be successful. I talk about that, like failure, a lot in the book. You don't even have to be successful. If you go try the business and it doesn't work, guess what? At the end of your life, you don't have try to start a business on your regret list anymore because you've tried it.
Right.
It's all about those things. People think it's so much about living their life trying to reduce risk. And I'm here to try to convince you, reduce regret. It will really make decisions way different for you. And to go back to what we started this story with, of like, that's why I made the decision to go to this summer camp last week and help these kids. It was about reducing regret. Like, that would have been different. I'm not going to think about the week before book. If I would have went back 6 months or 6 weeks before the book came out, I would have made such a big difference. No, wouldn't have. At the end of my year, one of the top 3 things, if not maybe, depending on when my son's born, will be that week. And that's what it is. It's about living your life. I think we're both fans of Jesse Itzler, and he talks about your life resume. And hearing that term has been a game changer for me, because we're so willing to build our professional resume. We're so willing to chase the next accomplishment, but we don't often make time for the life resume. And the life resume is what we count at the end of the year. You don't think about weeks 52 when you made an extra $10 because you sold the thing, or Alexa. Like, you think about, when I look back on a year and I say, what were the best things that happened this year? It was probably the concert and the trip and the family trip and getting to spend the summer with mom. And like, it was all of those things. That's the life resume. But you have to create time for that. And for a lot of people, that's like, again, it's those things you go back on. It's like, we try to, again, we can't be perfect, but how can we try to reduce as much regret in that category as possible? Because if relationships matter most, reduce the most regret in that area.
And I think the key word in this is the fulfillment piece, right? That's a huge part of stepping into that space, both for yourself and for those around you. So how can people, or how do you see the world of high performance implementing fulfillment?
It starts with getting clear on what you want, right? If you can say, hey, this is what success means to me, well, then if we know what success means to us, the journey of that, we got to find more ways to feel grateful along the journey. And we have to realize, like, this is the fun part. You have a podcast, right? You've opened the Agora Studios. Like, when was this a first little thought and dream for you?
I've told the story many a time. So the first moment of Agora being a vision was probably 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Little vision of this thing, right?
So I was driving with my then boss, and he said, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I just want to have a space where guys can go and they could just unpack themselves.
Yeah.
And I have it like written on my wall of like financial goals. It's like to provide guys with the space to follow and find their personal golden thread. That's my version of that thing, the golden thread. I was doing the men's group, and this thing was literally coming out of my chest. And I was looking in the room, and it was going through the room. And I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? I went home, and exactly the word of the day, I turned to my wife, I said, I feel like I just ate a Thanksgiving dinner. I feel so fulfilled right now. And I don't know what that was. And there were a lot of serendipities afterwards, Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, and then learning about like the Greek mythology around that. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that's a real thing. Like, that dates back, that's a human experience. And I don't know what that is, but that's what I'm going after. And it doesn't matter how it shows up, that's the thing. And I just said, I want to create that. And then we opened a year ago in April.
That right there is so great. And then you fast forward, and I'm sure, that there are things, we on a drive, when we were driving to CVS, we were talking
for
about
the ninth time.
We were talking, for the ninth time. We were talking about the next one, right? We're talking about the biggest thing, and that is so easy to get kind of caught up in like the woulda, shoulda, coulda. I remember I got, one of my flights got delayed when I was flying, not to New York, but to the last place I was going, and I had this like, the instinct of being like, mother, like God, there's, and I sat and I pulled out my phone, and the something about the book popped up. And I said, I'm complaining about a flight that's delayed to go promote my book. 5 years ago, I would have been like, you have a book? like you dreamed of writing a book. And what's funny enough is when I first started my business and I made the decision, and you know, it's not for everybody, but like I cut a lot of alcohol out of my life, and it was just, for me, it just felt like I needed to do that to do this.
Sure,
and there's plenty of people who are successful in business and need to do that. And I was, you know, I never had a beer on a Tuesday. It wasn't like a problem. It was just like, I felt like I was spending the most important 48 hours of my life, the weekend, that I had to go build this new thing. And I needed that trade. So I would spend a lot of Friday nights in the library, the public library in Arlington, Virginia. And I would work there until they closed at like 8 p.m. And I remember, like, depending on the mood I was in on a Friday, I'd look around and there'd be like all of these books in the library. And I would either feel like so inspired that like, oh, that person wrote that book and this person wrote this book. And if I was like cranky or in a bad mood, I was like, this guy wrote a book on hammers. Like, who the hell cares about hammers? Like, how is that even possible? And be like, if he could do it, I could do it. But that is where like the dream started. And I remember in 2018, on my birthday, March 14th, for some reason, I started the Google document, Brett's Future Book. And that was the document that we used to create this book. And I, like, at this point, it had 125 pages in it. And like, some of them were nonsense and some of them were full chapters and some of them were ideas that are still in the book today. It was a great filtering lesson for me to find out, what was I talking about in 2018 that I'm still passionate about? Like, what flag am I still waving today that belongs in this book? And what were just like passing thoughts and ideas in the wind. And I say all that to go back to why it's important to have those memories, those moments, whether it's photos, whether it's notebooks, whether it's goal sheets, whether it's vision boards. Go back and look at the things that were on that old vision board or that old goals that we're bitching about now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a great change of, like, you know, we talk about the fulfillment.
Right.
The fulfillment is we're living the dream that hopefully we were thinking about a little bit later. And if you're not, and if you're like 2 years ago, I had the same goal and I still don't have it now, that should be a reflection of maybe we have to change the way we're thinking or how we're acting or what we're doing. And I always loved that vision of, am I living the same life I was a year ago? I hope the answer is always no. Yeah. Like I hope it's always a little bit of evolution. And you could also say, like, man, at some point, maybe I'm so at peace that when somebody is like, what do you want next year? I like to be living the exact same life I'm living this year. Like,
yeah, that's a great arrival point. It's a summit, right? It's a summit that you get to and you're like, you know, you could just, okay, like we've climbed the mountain, we've put in the work, and you can reflect. And it's funny because my shed, which used to be my pod shed where I do the podcast, you know, we were talking a little bit before in our CVS run. I was like, I remember just wanting to get power there because I had to run an extension cord from the house. Then I got the power and I was like, it's kind of hot in here. I really want a fan. And then I had the fan. And like it started to grow. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I have a space. Why am I doing the podcast there, right? And in that pod shed, I have a whiteboard that in 2021, 22, whatever it was, like 3 or 4 years ago. What are you in, 25? So it was like 20, whatever it is. And it's just like Agora. And it's like, or whenever, 4 years ago, Agora. And it's like, and it has like all the arms and coming down. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Like, I forgot that was just an idea on a whiteboard. And now it's conversations with investors and brand partnerships with people that I would dream about partnering with. And I'm like, what? Like, where did you lose it? Like, somewhere along the line of this journey. And I think it's still there. Of course, it has to be, right? In order to, you still have to have the essence of what the thing is to move you forward towards the goal of what you want it to be. But you get caught up in it. It's so easy to get caught up in it. And that goes for relationships, that goes for business, that goes for yourself. You get caught up in the momentum and it feels good, but also it's like, it goes to that early point. It's also like the detriment to yourself.
You can get so caught up in what's next, or when we evolve, a lot of times things get more complicated, more difficult, and sometimes we lose the idea of like, what did I really want in the first place? I have a notebook that when I was at the very first like summit of greatness, I wrote in my book like what were my like dreams, what my big goal. My big goal was like own my own business, be able to work from anywhere, like have location freedom. And the goal at the time was like speak on the Summit of Greatness stage that I was sitting in front of and seeing these like epic humans up there. It was like Mel Robbins was there, Jay Shetty was there, like at the very before they were even who they were. Yeah. This was like 9 years ago, and I found that notebook just recently, and funny enough, I sent an email. Lewis Howes wrote a testimonial for the book, and it's because I showed up at his event 9 years in a row. And
he brought you on stage, right? Didn't he bring you?
He brought me on stage last year, and like I should have been more specific. I want to be a keynote speaker, like the main speaker. So like be specific with your goals. But what's funny enough is like I didn't even realize that till he brought me up, got back to my seat, driving home, and I'm like, oh, that was it. Like I dreamed that 9 years ago, and you know it's so easy to be like I'm not getting the stages that I want, or I'm not getting the the big room, or like the. And then I just like when all of this was changing with going through that thing with last October and the shift, all of a sudden I started shifting. Like that changed as well. I was like, I'm gonna dominate the breakout room. Give me the breakout room. I don't need slides. Give me a marker board. Like I'm just gonna dominate that part of speaking. And it's funny, man. Like a lot of people are like keynote or nothing. I'm like impact or nothing. If I'm really impact or nothing, put me anywhere. Let me dominate. And speaking became so fun. It didn't become a job anymore. It became this thing that I get to do because guess what? It doesn't have to be like my full fee. It doesn't have to be this thing. It doesn't have to work out perfectly because guess what? I'm not chasing this monetary value that is not going to change like our wife and I's bottom line. Don't get me wrong. I have monetary goals. I have business goals. I have things that I want to accomplish, but I was doing it all for the wrong reason. I was doing it so that I could say that I had this, but what was going to be enough? Like, and my wife and I joke like, not the primary breadwinner yet, but I'm like, seriously, man, like, come on now. And I think it took a shift of, I would have wasted probably the most important years of my life chasing something that wouldn't have mattered anyway. And I had the realization when I realized, so what do I need? Like, how much money do I need to make? And guess what? I could make that amount of money. Nobody would think it was coming from me anyway. You know what I mean? I would accomplish that thing, and I would be so unfulfilled for all the things that I needed to do and all the sacrifice I needed to make and all the things that I gave up, and I gave up the years with my son and gave up time with my wife to go chase this thing down that nobody cared about but me. And I know that that's a unique situation, and I'm not sitting here telling anybody like that not to go build a business for your family, not to go be successful for your family. Like, please don't get lost that I'm telling everybody like, oh, life is so easy and so great. But it's important to understand what you're chasing and why.
Yeah, I had this realization in the shower. I said, would you do it for free? And that's the barometer that I kind of stick with. And it's like, if your podcast doesn't become Joe Rogan, if you don't become a black belt, if Agora doesn't become what I know it's going to become, if those things don't come to fruition, would you still do them on the day-to-day? And as long as my answer is always yes to those questions, I'm good. Once it becomes a no, then I need to pivot and reflect and go, all right, well, why not? And what changed? When I was doing the editing for my own podcast, it was exhausting. 2:30 in the morning, editing. I was like, this is not fun anymore. This is taking all the juice out of what I'm doing because I have to now allocate this time, effort, and energy into this next version of it and what it needs and what it requires. So I outsource it, and I have to figure out how to pay the guy and do this. But it's like, you know what? I rather have the enjoyment of the conversation and not this idea of like, or even introductions. I used to do like the guest introduction, like, oh, coming. I fucking hate them. I hate them. I don't want to do them. And I was doing them because like, well, this podcaster does it, and this, well, I have to introduce the guest. And it's like, I don't fucking like doing them, so I'm not going to do them anymore. And that's it. Like, It's just not comfortable for me. And it kind of goes to that point of like that version of you kind of knows what feels right and what feels wrong, but you have to sift through some of it and try it out and be like, no, don't really want to do that. And it's this doesn't work for me. So just dismiss it and let it go.
That's a great question to start this process. Like, you're opening a notebook, start with that before you even get to what to like define your own success. Start with that question. If money wasn't involved, like how many parts of my day would I still be doing?
Yeah.
Great litmus test for what needs to change. Yeah. Talking with Michael earlier today, he said that one of his friends or somebody that they know was diagnosed with an illness and like basically told like they have 1 year to live, and was they were sitting around campfire style and was asking like, hey, do you mind if we ask like what like, now that you know what you know and like you kind of have to prepare, like not everybody has this opportunity to prepare. I shouldn't say opportunity, but not everybody's put in this situation. What is kind of important? Like, how are you spending this year? Like, what are you doing? Are you, the big regret things you're doing, like bucket list type things? And he's 50 something years old. And he said his answer was, the only thing that matters is the amount of belly laughs that you have with the people that you love the most. And it was such a simple answer. And like nobody expected him to say that, but it was one of those like, ooh, if that's what somebody who has 1 year left to live is thinking about, and like that's actually what's important. It's not the bucket list. It's not the thing. It's not all these things. It's like laughing uncontrollably with the people that you love the most. That's like that's a stopper right there. That's a life altering change of decision. And like think about that. And like when we talk about decision making, and you know what I love about you getting in bed with your son and just like laying there is like, that wasn't a belly laugh, but like that's one of those things that I bet if we were told we had a year to live, like that would be something you'd be like, I made the right decision.
Yeah, it's simple stuff. It's simple stuff, and we definitely overcomplicate it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have all these goals and aspirations, but it does put things radically back in perspective of what really is important. And you know, when you start to have children, and you'll find out very soon, you know, it's the ultimate mirror. It is the ultimate, you know, they're a window into this version of you that you forgot existed. And they allow you to kind of go back into that world, but you get this opportunity of hindsight and perspective that now you get to teach them and you get to show them. And it's not always easy, and it's definitely not always easy. But you know, you do get these moments, and you know, like last night, my daughter was going through some stuff, and we were like, "So what do you need from me? Like, you need me to just listen?" You know, like, and we just started belly laughing. Like my wife came in the room, we just started saying some crazy wild shit, and we just all started laughing, and she's laughing and crying and snot, and I was like, you know, even in that chaos of you know, some frustrations or whatever, like there is this opportunity to extrapolate what's truly important, you know. And you know, when you talk about high performance, and it is uncomfortable either way, right? Either you're going to go towards the discomfort of regret, or you're going to go to the discomfort of what you want out of life. And you know, I think my question is, what do you think most people are seeking at the highest level?
Welcome to Agora Social Club, the Westchester's hub for guys to gather, connect, and unwind. In the last 6 years, I've been facilitating a men's group called the Council of Dudes. And within that 6 years, I realized that guys need a place where they can get together, connect, and build community. A place that's not the gym, that's not jujitsu, that's not the bar, but a place where guys can come with no ego and grow and develop together. So here we have our chess table. We're gonna be having monthly chess lessons and our take a book, leave a book library. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't. Quantum physics to personal development to fiction. We also have our record player area. In the last few years, I've become very obsessed with jazz music. And if you don't know how to play vinyl, no big deal. It hooks up to your phone via Bluetooth. We have artwork from California to local artists. We have these small little work tables, so if you want to hang on the couch and get some work done, you can just come pop them open. And we also have our little workspace here with quotes from Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt. We also have our coffee bar, small fridge, and more quotes and artwork over the wall. Head on over to agorasocialclub.com, sign up for our free 7-day trial, and with that, you will get a key fob. Scan your key fob, and you have access to this space from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So if you're a guy in the Westchester area and you're looking to gather, connect, and unwind with like-minded men, head on over to agorasocialclub.com.
Seeking a feeling. At the highest level.
What is that feeling?
Everybody is seeking a feeling. The feeling is, call it fulfillment, call it inner peace, call it pride or feeling proud of yourself. That's really what I believe everybody's feeling is seeking. They think it's going to come from something usually external. They think it's going to come when you get the promotion. You think it's going to come when you buy the house. You think it's going to come from the car. Mr. Beast, the guy who owns the podcast studio, he was interviewed, I think, on the CEO over Diary of a CEO, and he was asked, like, "Are you happy?" And he like kind of giggled and laughed and paused for a second. He's like, "I'm more unhappy than I am happy." And he's like, please unpack that. And it was that he's a slave to his schedule. He was like, I've created a world that like I can't escape. Like I have to film this video at this time, and I have to do this thing at this time, and I have to meet this person at this time, and I have to record this video at this time. And he's like, sometimes I just like want to go to a concert or like watch a show, and like I can't. And it was shocking because like he has so many subscribers and he makes $1 billion and he does all these things, and it's like all these things, and we're like, man, that guy's living the dream. And he's sitting here saying he's like not that unhappy. Now, this is not to, you know, that was a small part of the podcast. There's
sure, of course,
a lot of parts of his life that are great. But that's what I have found with working with some of these clients. And, you know, I've honestly taken a little step back from coaching because of the book and speaking, and like there's other parts of life that I've been focused on. But that's probably the biggest what didn't I expect from high performance coaching was this realization that everybody is chasing this feeling that we think is going to come from an accomplishment, when in reality, it's going to come from the gratitude that we have and finding more fulfillment. And that's why I say it's a daily practice. And it might be your three word, what am I grateful for? Mm-hmm. For me, like I've always struggled with the journal and staying consistent. So I have a 10-minute drive, like 12-minute drive in the morning to the gym. I've started talking the gratitudes out loud. For me, it's like, it's dark. It's like just me in the car.
I love that. That's like some of my favorite times.
It's my favorite.
It's like a cup of coffee, nobody in the street. It's dark. Like I don't even turn on the radio, and I just drive. And like I have a 2-minute commute to the gym. But even in that 2 minutes, it's just like this little perfect vacuum of just warm coffee, darkness, and I'm just in my own little space. And yeah, a lot of things come up in that time.
And what I've also found is taking the gratitude one step further is helpful for me, because I could so easily be like, it's sunny, my health, and my family,
well, it's dismissive, right? It becomes like a checklist of gratitude.
It's just, I got through the checklist, what's next?
Right.
And what I found that in the 10 minutes, I have a little bit more time that I can even say like, I'm so grateful, like I'm so grateful for Vinny, for having me on the podcast, for doing the thing. And then what I love about it is I'm a big voice note guy. I think I've voice noted you probably 5 times in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
no, it's fine.
But like, I love the fact that right there in the morning at whatever time, I can boom and just be like, hey man, was just thinking about you this morning, like really grateful, like really appreciate you. And all of a sudden the gratitude is so much bigger. It's become this thing that I've had more appreciation for. A lot of times one single like little voice message can make somebody else's whole day. And now it's not this dismissive gratitude, but like now I'm thinking about it all day. And my whole morning is better because of it. So, and if it's my wife, like I can really talk out like, but why? Why my wife? What did she do? What did she do specifically that when I get home, I can thank her specifically for that one thing? That means so much more than, thanks babe, like appreciate you. Like, yeah, but for what? And why am I appreciative of my health? Why am I appreciative of like this opportunity? Why am I appreciative of coming to New York? Taking a couple extra seconds has been helpful for me to feel it.
Yes.
And to me, it's also this thing that now repeats itself because I've spent more time on it, and it actually changes. It can actually alter my mood as opposed to like checklist next. Now let's get to work.
Yeah, it just becomes another thing that you do as part of whatever routine that you've implemented, and it just becomes just as dismissive or just as much of a to-do list as anything else. And even just going down that list of like, for me, I do need to sit on it. I do need to like sit on it and chew on it. And like, you know, I'll wake up in the morning like, I say a prayer. I'm just grateful to wake up today. But like to your point, why? Like, what is it about today that I'm grateful for? And the day hasn't even started. And it is simple as I just woke up.
Yeah.
But there's something for me personally that I need to sit in that. Like, I think we're very similar. Like, I'm a very, Rubik's Cube, thinky, unpack, compartmentalize the brain, and I need to sit on that and chew on it. And when I think of the gratitude with the kids or my wife, I have to think of moments that I was grateful. I have to sit and go, when was I grateful for my wife? When was I grateful for my son, my daughter? What did they do that I had a glimpse into where the world stood still around them and it was just them, and it froze me in a way, and it just touched me in a way that like I'm grateful for that. And it could be the most monotonous small thing, and it usually is. It's usually the most dismissive throwaway thing that's just, I don't even know it's in there, but all of a sudden it just comes up. I'm like, oh, it's how fucking messy his room is right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of grateful for that. Like,
Yeah.
it's fucked up, but it's I need to sit on that gratitude. And the times that I don't, like, again, it just becomes a to-do list.
One of my clients and I, his name's Ryan, we were talking about like how to create memories, actually, like how do you create a moment? How do you create memories? And we were like together trying to come up with the formula, and it's actually the last chapter in the book of like,
I love that.
What I believe is like, how do we actually create it? And it's an acronym for best life. And if you trace back to all of the things that become a moment or become a memory, they fall into one of these things. Like, and the B stands for blood. The E is like you're ecstatic. The S is sweat. There's tears. There's fear. There's like all these things. There are emotions that we feel, and
that is fucking awesome.
When it comes to
I love that.
Thank you. When it comes to moments, sometimes it's doing something randomly for the first time. Like I'll never forget the first time I jumped out of a plane because there was so much fear and so much like, oh shit, what's gonna happen?
it's like you're like removed from reality.
Why I'm going to remember summer camp with these kids who have lost a parent is because of probably the tears and the empathy. right? Like that's what I'm going to remember. Why was it such an impactful moment? Because I created space to allow the tears and allow the empathy. Moments don't have to be something brand new. It could also be something old done in a new way. So doing something like going on a date with your wife, that can become a checkbox just like gratitude. And I'm not perfect with this, and I'm not the poster child for taking your wife out on a date. But what I have found is like we were looking for a date night, and like my wife and I, we both like eating at home. Like we eat kind of the same stuff, and like the date night thing. But I was like, and I try to track to make sure that like I'm doing my husbandly stuff, and I'm like, we got to go out, we got to do something, and we ended up going bowling. And we went bowling, just the two of us, and we went bowling, and we bowled for like an hour, and it was great. But there was an arcade next to it. And we went into that arcade like two little kids and spent like an hour in that arcade. It's probably the best date we've had in such a long time. Like we're shooting the lasers, shooting the aliens. We're playing Pop-A-Shot basketball. It was so much fun. And why that stands out to me out of all of the date nights, because it was something different. Right. What was it? We probably had more, like there was more laughter in that date than normally. Like, don't get me wrong. It's important to talk about the serious stuff too. Of course, yeah. But that is what I learned from my client Ryan when we were planning out like his, he says taking care of his wife is important, building that relationship is important. So like once a quarter they do a trip where like it's either a date, but it's a sleepaway, and somebody watches the kids and they go and they rent a hotel, they go on a trip, they do something, could be a night, could be 2 nights, could be 3 nights. But him dedicating that for a year, he's like, hands down the relationship is better because of that simple part of, so that's where like structure comes into play. It really can make a difference. But creating moments, creating memories, it doesn't always have to be, we have to do something new. Sometimes it's do something old, but do it in a new way. Bring a new energy to it. Bring a new emotion to it. How can you make it more fun where there's more laughter? How can you maybe make it more like intimate, where like maybe some tears and some raw emotion come up? But when I come to uncomfortable, I also talk about like, fear. And like sometimes there's blood. Like you think about like a race or jiu-jitsu. Like you think about like, there's a lot of sweat that goes into that training. There's a lot of maybe fear of like the next, battle or whatever it may be. So I'm a big, back to the life resume. How do we create more moments and stuff? Well, we got to make them special. We got to make them different and create space and be present enough. The one thing that we cannot multitask is being present.
Yeah. And we think we can.
We always think we can. Yeah. And it's that thing in our pocket that buzzes and rings and dings and shows up in bright colors and stuff like that is the biggest thing keeping us from being present right now. And that's another thing coming back from that week away is I realized like it has been way too long till from like a full disconnect. And the first 2 days, I was like a weirdo being.
You got like phantom phone.
Is my phone? And my phone's not even here. It's in the cabinet. Like it's not even ringing. But it took a little bit of time. And now, funny enough, 7 days later, I'm like, like how do I?
Well, it's like I'll go into like a sensory deprivation tank, and the last thing I want to do is like look at a phone. I'm like, no, it's so like it's like no, I don't want to go back into that world.
Yeah.
When my daughter was born, more so than my son because she was the first one. I remember when they brought us into the room, and it was like out of this. It was like scene, all right. It was like I was on a movie set. It didn't even seem real because it was just so out of the norm of what was happening in my life. It was like, all right, here, all the 9 months in the building, all of a sudden it's like, all right, and Vin, you're going to take the baby and we're going to put the ink on its feet. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? The lights are brighter. Everyone's standing out differently. And you're just so present and focused that it becomes like an out-of-body experience. But you don't need to have a child to recreate that scenario. It doesn't need to be something extremely heightened, and it doesn't need to be something extremely traumatic. It could be somewhere in between, exactly to your point, where you're just doing something that you've maybe done before, but there's a new twist to it. And that allows you to emote a whole new reality of opportunity of your life experience and your relationship and your dynamic, because now you have this new reflection point to pull from and extrapolate from that now can guide you in a completely different way.
Yeah, being able to tap into your emotions. And that's different for everybody. For some people, that's music. For some people, that's a concert. I remember the first concert I ever went to where I wasn't heavily drinking with the boys, right? And it was a completely different experience. And I remember I remember going to a concert. It was Dave Matthews once, and I remember
big Dave Matthews guy
being like, I can't believe he didn't play this song. You look up the playlist, like, oh shit, he played that like towards the end, and like I guess I wasn't really remembering that. And then you go and you have a completely different experience. And why that became a moment was because all of my senses were different. he plays the song, and I'm standing and I'm dancing, and I'm like feeling it in my soul, and like all of a sudden, like the lights in me, and it's like nobody else is there, and you're having like whatever he's tripping billies or whatever, whatever the heck he's playing. It's like it just becomes this epic experience, but it's because you allow your emotions to come in. For some people, that's sitting with a fire. For some people, that's maybe taking grandpa and just like, you know, sitting there talking. Or I remember like, you know, there's this photo with my my grandma. She passed away last year, and she loved crossword puzzles. And
my grandma did too.
And I like that was her thing.
We'd
and like
crush those.
Yeah.
Like we would time her.
So good. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
so good.
I could get maybe 5. And like, and my funny enough, my
She would do it in pen.
in pen.
Like,
What
that's
is the
wild.
pen thing? My Nana too. Why pen?
Wild, because they had confidence.
They don't mess up.
They ain't
Confidence.
fucking up.
That's confidence. And I remember there's this photo of, you know, she had lost her sight in her one eye, and like I'm reading her the things, and we're filling it out together, and my mom's like on the side taking a photo, and I can put myself right back into that thing. And that's one of those things where I didn't know that was a moment. I didn't know that was going to, I wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a photo that's going to be a thing that's going to be a lasting memory. Like, that's probably like my last great memory of her is like, she's smiling. I must have said something that made her laugh. There's this photo. We got the crossword puzzle out. And like, when I remember Nana, that's what I remember Nana. Like, there's so many other things, but that's like the last great memory I have with her. And why? There was laughter. Why? There was like deep connection. Why? Created space, like wasn't distracted with anything else, right? There was nothing on the table but the crossword puzzle. I think it can be easier than we make it out to be. And Instagram and social media make it out to be this thing that even if you're having the time of your life, if you're trying to record the time of your life, I think that filters out the moment, right? Like, you know, you go back to Michael Jordan hitting that shot in Game 7 in, what was it, 1997 or something, and like nobody has a phone, and you see everybody's face, and like, and then you see LeBron breaking the scoring record, and like you can't see anybody's face because their phone is in front of it. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have recorded that if I was there. Yeah. Let's be clear. That's a moment. But I think that's what we're living through. We're living through this immediate filter that's 2 inches from our face into the next thing. And I am not a phone disconnection expert, but please don't take that. But I'm starting to realize how much of a factor it plays. And, you know, especially reading all the things that I'm reading for, you know, the newborn baby boy, is how important those screens are from the first 3 things. And also they get, apparently babies get mad at you if they see you on a screen and they don't have a screen. Like, so it's parents are trying to figure out like, how do we disconnect it? I realize I'm not even worried right now about how to keep my soon to be baby boy off screens. I'm focused on how do I keep myself off of screens in front of my baby boy. Yeah. That's the challenge that I'm facing. And I don't know the answer for that yet, but I'm going to, hopefully try to figure that out.
They get to a point where they just tell you, like, get off your phone. And like, oh, all right, sorry. You're absolutely right, dude. Like, what am I doing? Like, Dad, you're on your phone. I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, because that, and that's a beautiful thing that the reality is, and it goes back to that simplistic, they just want you. Like, that's like, my son doesn't, he doesn't care how successful Agora is. Like, yeah, Dad, I'm proud of you. My daughter, like, she'll say, I'm so proud of you. You're doing your thing, and it's so cool, and it's amazing. And I think it's important for your children to see you do those things. Like, I go to the gym very early. I go at like 5 a.m. On Saturdays, I go at 6, and I come home, I get ready for work, and I'm sweaty, and I tell my wife all the time, like, they need to see me come home at 6 a.m, 7 a.m, sweaty from the gym or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is I'm doing. Like, they need to see Dad pushing himself, because it now sets the tone and a model for them that, like, my kids had a Father's Day report, and, it's like, how old's your dad? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, what's your dad's favorite food? Like, steak. Like, what is your dad's favorite dessert? They wrote, my dad doesn't eat dessert, right? And I do eat dessert. Like, I fucking do. Of course I do. But that's the version of me that they see. I don't sit and glom, right? I don't, like, that's not part of who I am. And it goes back to that part of, like, we have all these different versions of us, right? But the version that they see, and you're going to see it very soon, my friend, the version that they see is it's just so unbelievable how they can see you, especially, when you're in that role. It's a little girl, it's whatever it is. They look at you. My wife says to me all the time, like, your son is obsessed with you. Like, you are his world right now. Like, everything he does is dad. And I'm like, and sometimes I take it for granted. Sometimes it's like, it's just the way it is, right? Or it's going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
And as I have my daughter, and it goes back to that point I made earlier, it's like, she's 10. I'm like, oh, I have 4 more years to like lock this in with him. And all you can do is hope that you're doing a good job.
And stop.
Yeah. And you're doing the best you can. And I think that comes back to like, we're not going to be perfect at probably anything. Like, I think that's a really bad bar to measure yourself on. But what would you change in your life if you knew you had 1 year to live? And honestly, for me, somebody had asked if you had 1 year to live, what would be your regrets? This was a couple years ago. And I thought about my life, and lucky enough at the time, I didn't have a lot of like personal regrets. I was very proud of the way I have lived. I wish I would have started my business a little sooner. Yeah, I wish I would have done this. Yeah, yes, of course I want to see my kids and my, meet my wife and my kids grow up like at the time. And I actually was very proud of my personal. I had one professional regret that I knew that I always had wanted to write a book and I hadn't done that. And that question made that a priority for me. I was like, if that would be my only regret, like, yeah, there's other things, build money, whatever.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Maybe.
of course.
Of course there's going to be things. But if you were like, I had 1 year, what would be the only thing you'd be mad that you hadn't done? It was write a book. And that was a great filter through the lens of, so why am I not working on that now? And then immediately, boom, a month later, I hired the publishing company. We started doing the work, and it was like the book 2 years later, took longer than I thought. But the book 2 years later is now it's a real thing. So I love that question. And that's why, to me, like, so much of this book talks about regret and how we can avoid it. And that means that we probably have to increase the amount of risk that we're willing to take. And also there's time risk. And I know, Sahil Bloom talks about time a lot, but time risk meaning, like, I think it would be cool to learn how to fly a plane. I don't need to do that until like I can't run on the field anymore, or like run on a treadmill. Like, I'll do that later. Like, that doesn't need to be right now. Right now, I want to do all the things that take me in my health. And for anybody there who's listening, who's maybe one of your older listeners, I have this little saying that I do in the morning that convinces me I'm always in my prime. When I wake up, I convince myself, and I don't have to convince myself, I just remind myself, this is the youngest I'm ever going to be again. And this is the wisest, and this is the wisest I've ever been.
Oh,
and if
beautiful.
I can convince myself that this is the smartest and wisest I've ever been, because I have the most, time and I have the most experience.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not getting any younger. Boom. Guess what? I'm in my prime. Let's go get it.
You're in your prime.
So great reflection for me. Like, when I need a quick little reset, or like, I'm too young, I'm too old. Like, I've never really believed in that. It's like, hey, we're in our prime. Let's go get it.
Real quick, what is as a high performance coach, what does your day-to-day look like? What's a day in, day out look like?
Yeah, I wake up usually around 5:20, 5:30 during the week, and I start off with no snooze, conquering the snooze button. If you're a snooze person, get to chapter 3 or 4 of that book, and I talk about like how important that all is. And for me, it's not. People hear the snooze button, they think of a certain time. It's not about a certain time. It's everything changed for me with the snooze button. I was habitual, like anywhere between 3 and 15 snooze buttons.
I have 6 alarms set.
Yeah, and some people it's fine, but for me, what I started to realize is when somebody had said like, "Oh, so you start your day 0-1," I was like, "Oh, that sucks." That's funny. Was a punch to the stomach of, "Oh, I guess I do." Like, and not only that, but it was the first commitment that I broke of my day. Because last night I said I was going to wake up at 5:20, and if I don't wake up till 5:45, like, I broke that first commitment, right? And what happened is I thought...
Do you have to be that rigid, though?
I don't know if you have to be that rigid.
Like, I have a 4:15, 4:20, depending on the day, and like a 4:35 or something like that. Like, I have to set these windows because I also go to bed late, and I'm waking up, like, to me, that's pretty fucking early. So I need those, like, hey, time to get up.
Yeah.
Get the fuck up, right?
Yeah.
I need that because I need, like, this off-ramp of sleep.
Well, there's the like the mindset version of it, and then there's the actual science, and I talk about that as well. And there's this thing called sleep inertia, and what happens is when you like if you're going to snooze, you're better off snoozing for 30 minutes and not having another alarm go off for 30 minutes where you can actually get back into a sleep cycle. But if it's every 10 minutes, like most people's phones are, what happens is you're actually creating this sleep inertia where you're going in and out, and it's too quick that you're completely ruining your actual wake up, and you're actually going to be groggier for like the next 3 hours. So that part was the part that also was like, oh, so it's not just a feeling. It's not just this like high performance thing. It's like there's actual science behind like this is screwing up my wake up.
Yeah, often there is, right?
This is making me worse. So what I started to do was like, just set the alarm for the time that you need to get up. And then there's also this no plan B, right? And actually, if, for you, I would say just get 30 more minutes of good quality sleep rather than the in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Right.
I know mentally it takes a little bit of time. So that's part one. I drink like 20 ounces of water, like right when I wake up, and take my vitamins. I make like a green drink that has like some apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, like that kind of stuff, and my pre-workout and all that stuff, and I pretty much get to the gym. It's like takes from wake up to like leave the house, it's about 30 minutes. I know I'm a little bit slow, but like I don't move quick in the morning, so I give myself that time. Usually work out first thing in the morning. Sometimes that changes. This is where like rigid Brett used to be like, has to be first, and then like now I'm like, actually
I like Richard Brett. Has to be.
Yeah.
Kind of like Jack Nicholson as a Joker a little bit there.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's, I also remember my days working in fitness, and I used to see like, the fit entrepreneur guy come in at like 11 and be like, this guy's lazy. Like, what is he doing? And I'm like, no, he woke up, got the most important things done, and now comes to the gym when nobody else does. Although I was in the gym this morning, and like now, like I used to think that was only the business people. Now everybody works from home. Everybody works out whenever the hell they want anyway. The gym is like always crowded.
It's great.
But so that's kind of my that's kind of my morning routine. Then I try to come home. I'm pretty clear on like what my 3 main priorities are. I call them like my MITs, my most important tasks, and I try not to do, structure wise. I try not to do any calls on Monday morning or Friday morning, and that's kind of my opportunity to like first thing Monday morning is all about Brett. Like not all about Brett from yes personal, but also all about Brett, like how do I get momentum into my week before the team comes into play, before like the other tasks, before answering emails and all that stuff. And then Friday morning is kind of my opportunity. I call it like my 4-hour focus Friday. And I start my day not going to the gym. And Friday mornings, I just like wake up and try to get everything that's on my to-do list for the week, like as much checked off as I can to finish the week pretty strong. And then I'll go to the gym a little bit later if that's a gym day. But those two opportunities are kind of like how I bookend my week, and they've been really helpful. And an evening, like, I try to wind down. I'm not as good at night, but I do have like a little alert that goes off, and it's like, do you want to be well rested, or do you want to be like tired and lethargic?
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, okay. So that hits home. But that's, my day is not perfect all the time, but there's some structure, and it tends to work. But it also changes through the season. Summer, travel, whatever it may be, like wake up time, like all that stuff is negotiable as long as there's a reason behind it.
How important is that system though to have in place?
I think it's the wake up or
just the kind of like the Friday, the Monday, like having those structures in place.
I just know that leads me to more better days.
Yeah.
And I think your best days should lead you to more good, good days should lead you to more good days. Like actually look back, like today was such a good day. When you lay in your head on a pillow and you're like, today was such a great day. Ask yourself why.
Oh yeah, I always
why
do.
was
I
it
do
so?
that a lot.
Why was it so good? Who did you spend it with?
I get such a dump on the day after. Like it's such an emotional dump that it's like I crash. After a really solid day off, or like just doing like this, tomorrow will be such a heavy day because I'm riding such a high that like the down is just like, oh fuck, it's brutal.
Yeah, and after a big presentation, this feels like very conversational. I love this kind of stuff. I could do this. But like if I'm speaking in front of a big room and I'm bringing like full throttle, like volume turned up, Brett energy. Yeah, like there's a lot.
It's like an adrenaline dump.
There's an adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
But I also think your worst days should lead you to more good days. If you have a really bad day, figure out why. And I'm a sports guy. I love breaking things into 4 quarters. And I love asking myself, did I have a bad game or did I have a bad quarter? Because you can lose a day in a bad quarter. You can also win a lot of games in the fourth quarter. And the way I break it down is like everything from the minute I wake up to like work starts is my first quarter. Everything from like work starting to lunch is the second quarter. Everything from lunch to end of work. And they're not like all the same amount of times, but again, bear with me here. Everything from lunch to the end of work is quarter 3, and everything from end of work to sleep is quarter 4. Why I love that is because the same rules apply to sports. You start off really strong, you have a much better chance of winning, right? Which is why the morning routine is so important. Here's the other thing that you learn in sports. You could also win a lot of games in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
Which also put things in perspective of maybe work was crap today. Like maybe I just was distracted. Maybe I didn't get good answers. Maybe a bunch of people told me no. Maybe like whatever. If I can have a great fourth quarter with my wife and like have some really good quality time with maybe friends, and guess what? Wasn't really a bad day. It might have just been a bad quarter.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I mean, we get caught up in that 5 minutes. Like, it was a bad day or a bad 5 minutes. Like, which one was it? But we spiral. It's so easy to spiral.
Yeah.
The book is coming out in September.
Yeah, September 9th.
Awesome.
September 9th, 9/9. Yeah, it's available now everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. Yeah, it's really exciting. This has been a long project. I've put a lot of literal blood, sweat, and tears into this book. It's very actionable. I wrote it in a way that I like to read books. I always have a hard time finishing books because it's like you got to wait to the very end to get the best part. And this book, it's all about helping you ask. It's getting you to ask the right questions, and it's really helping you build momentum. And the idea behind it is that at the end of every chapter, there's something you can do immediately, which should take you less than 30 seconds to flip the page, and there's something to do in the next 24 hours. So it's very actionable for people who, but my goal is by the end of the book, you don't have to now implement everything. You have already implemented everything, and hopefully this whole book, I joke that I'm a bad motivational speaker because I don't want you to leave motivated. I want you to leave with momentum. So this whole book is about building momentum.
Yeah, momentum's huge. And it's hard because momentum, it's like, where does it fit into the discipline cycle, right? Because does it come first? Does it come in the middle? Does it come after? And then there's momentum, there's discipline, then there's sacrifice, and all of these things kind of take their own, and you mentioned the word season, they take their own season. You might be a season of discipline. I just came off the season of crushing of chocolate chip cookies at the end of the night. But I needed to be in that season in order to ramp up to this season. Now I'm in a season of up at 4 and CrossFit. So you have to recognize those seasons, and as much, and I couldn't even get out of my own way in that season. I was like, I know I need to wake up early, but I just fucking can't do it.
Yeah.
And just owning it and being like, this is the season of fucking Chips Ahoy cookies, and I'm cool with it,
Yeah, and it's a really you bring up a great point because a lot of people ask when do I know this is a season and I'll come out of it, and when is this my new norm? And I think it's important to understand do you know when the stop is? And I think it's totally fine. We watch athletes all the time have off seasons. The season ends, and guess what? They go on a boat, they go on a fun, they go do all the things, and then they get back into training when the season leads up. But as humans, we're 24/7, 365 all the time, work all the time, be a parent all the time, and there's no off season. I think it's important to give ourselves these ebbs and flows, but know when the alarm goes off. When I say the alarm, the warning sign of okay, this was great. I've been having cookies, but it's been a month of this. It's time to lock back in, and then have a plan for locking back in. Right? Don't have cookies in the house. Same thing when I go visit mom. Mom is dessert all the time. All Brett's favorite things from childhood is always there, and I'm well, there's usually not a whole apple pie sitting in front of me, and guess what? Give me 2 spoons. But it's a moment in time, and it's I know that's going to happen, but there's not going to be an apple pie sitting on our house in our table at home. So it's that's not an everyday thing. That's fine. I'm fine with that. So that's where living life and sharing experiences is way more important than being rigid all the time. Has to be missing out. So for a lot of people, it's you also got to know how much leeway do you have, how much leash do you have to know to get back. The whole never miss a Monday for me, it doesn't mean that Brett works out 7 days a week. It has been a pillar in my life that has allowed me to never get too far away from the fitness goal that I have, from the fitness standard that I have. And never miss a Monday means I'm just never going to miss the opportunity to start a week. But what I love about it is you and Greg is, I remember me and Greg having a fake argument over the never miss a Monday, but Greg has a great read. Greg's well, with kids in the house, I have really hard workout. My hardest workouts are Saturday and Sunday. So Monday becomes a rest day for him. Great. He has a process that works for him. Yeah. It doesn't have to be there's not one way to do anything. And that's why high performance, there's so many different ways, but the trial and error is where you really find what works for you. It's again, why I love dialed in is because I literally picture these dials on a stereo or the camera, we're focusing the lens. You dial it into where am I now? What do I need? And what gives me the best result? That may change. There's a reason there's dials. They may change a little bit. You may need to wake up a little bit earlier. You may need more sleep. You may need more it's going to change throughout the phases of life. So like, I think you can be dialed in a lot of different ways in a lot of different phases.
Yeah, it's like tapping into that frequency of what works for you. And like again, going back to the earlier point of missing those early morning workouts. Now, if I sleep through whatever it is, I'm like, I guess I was fucking tired. I needed to sleep, and that's okay too. And sometimes I hit a Monday workout, and sometimes I don't. Not missing Tuesday. Sunday's a rock walk, but if I miss a Monday, I must have been tired, and I have to honor that too.
Absolutely. And there's more than one ways to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for doing this. I feel like we can keep on going. Absolutely. Where can people connect with you? Where can they grab the book? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, it's pretty much Brett Eaton everywhere. BretteAton. Brett Eaton _ on Instagram. That's where the social media I hang out the most. BrettEaton.com. You can kind of learn everything about me. That's my website. And the book available everywhere. You can pre-order it. It'll show up in September. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. It's called Uncomfortable Either Way. Why Choosing Easy is Making Your Life Hard. Pick it up. It's going to be a great one.
Dude, thank you so much. This was a long time in the making, and I feel so honored and blessed for you to be here and share this and bring in the book. I appreciate it, and I'm really excited for everything you have coming on, and I look forward to reading it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you, and you're doing great work here with men. I hope you know, like, we need men who are speaking up and doing this type of leadership work, and I'm grateful for you because the message needs to be out there.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.